When I first got started on this project, I was basically looking to uh, pay tribute to an old Ray Harryhausen movie called Earth versus the Flying Saucers. And in this movie, Ray Harryhausen only stop motion animated the bottom portion of the UFO, but it made it very unique and original. So I thought to myself, hey, I could do the same thing. But if I did it, I would have to do it very cheaply. So to accomplish that, I went to the Goodwill and got a few different items for just a couple dollars each. And this here is the actual UFO that was used in the movie. The bottom portion is the top of a Tupperware container. The center section is a frisbee, and the top portion, which comes apart, is actually the bottom of a peanut butter jar, which has been cut off and then simply placed over the top here to hide the fact that the entire thing is being held up on what is essentially just part of a desk lamp. So that's how that was made. And filming was going along fine. The stop motion animation was really easy to do, especially with computer equipment now, which Ray Harryhausen didn't have back when he was filming Earth versus the Flying Saucers. So it went really well, and I was really happy with it. But at the end of the movie, the UFO had to blow up, and I didn't have time to go and build a model that I could put a charge in and blow it to pieces. So I had to come up with something that would look like it was blowing up, and I had to do it cheaply. I tried to use an old system that I had used before that had worked a couple of times, where basically you rotoscope sections of a UFO, or well, any object, section by section, and then as you take the explosion by itself and put it behind those layers of film. And as it's exploding, you take away different layers of the film so it looks like different portions of the object are blowing up. Well, I tried it for the UFO and it turned out horrible. I mean, it was one of the worst explosions I had ever tried to put together. It was cheesy looking, you could tell it was all rotoscoped, and I was kind of in a panic because I didn't know what to do. I thought to myself, man, I'm going to lose all this really good stop motion animation because I'm going to have an ending explosion that just stunk. So I started thinking about it, and a friend of mine, Tom Armour, he had made a plume of smoke for another production that I worked on with CGI. And I said, well, maybe I'll give Tom a call and I'll see if he can come up with something. So I did, and at first, he said, yeah, he'd help me out with it. And at first he sent me a couple of explosions on a green screen, but they weren't quite right. They looked interesting, but one of them had these burning embers that came out, and it just wasn't what I was looking for. And then there was another problem with another one he sent me, where the smoke from the explosion would gather on the top of the frame, and that wasn't going to work either because the explosion was supposed to take place outside. But then he sent me a third one, and the third one was perfect. After the explosion, there were no embers, and the explosion came apart and then dissipated. And that was exactly what I was looking for. So after he sent me that, I put it together with the UFO and only rotoscoped one frame of the UFO so that that part could land on the ground after it exploded. And then after I did that, I also ended up using the old footage he sent me of the smoke bloom coming up as the smoke was leaving the wreck of the UFO. I put it all together and it really worked out good. So I was kind of glad that I allowed someone who does the actual CGI, which I've always kind of strayed away from, to actually finish that film, because otherwise I think it would have been mediocre at best. So, but I was really happy with the way it turned out, and I think that was probably the first time that I had allowed CGI to work in conjunction with my stop motion animation.